Hello, this is Christina Bart. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about a little bit about the Steven Crowder Daily Wire situation, because I saw a podcast today with one of his former co-chairs, who'd be on the podcast with him, or the TV show with the radio show or whatever, and he just dished about why he left the show and some things that Steven did on his side that didn't sound too great. So I'm like, the nerve of him with that contract. If you don't know all that drama, I did do a pretty extensive video about it. So you guys can go ahead and check that out in my other videos. But in Canada, some men got together, as in politicians, and marched around in pink heels. So that's going pretty viral. And I've got my thoughts about that I want to share. Also, I want to show you guys this pretty viral video of this deranged trans person literally threatening violence if he doesn't get access to the bathrooms. Literally threatening violence. So I want to talk about that as well. That is the extreme end of the spectrum. And I know most people who are trans and have been trans, they're just chill and want to live their life. And there's so many activists that are probably not even trans, but that's a point I want to make today, I guess, because he's obviously a deranged person, and I don't know if he got some kind of therapy or whatever before he started growing his hair out, etc. But there's people with different issues that they're not properly going through and diagnosing, and they're like, oh, you're trans, and because you say you are, and a lot of these other people have other things going on in their mind that there's a reason why they're dysphoric, but there's other things to treat it, because it's not really gender dysphoria that they have. And some people are violent and crazed, and they're like, well, but they say they're a woman, so we just got to go along with it. It's like, are you serious? So our medical community is just not doing well at all, not in the least bit. And I also want to talk about the Chicago mayor-elect doubling down with the don't blame kids stuff, because I have a video from one of the an interview that Fox News did with the two people who were attacked by the crowd of kids. And at first people really just saw the white woman being attacked, but she was with her black boyfriend when they were attacked. So they talked about what happened. They robbed them too, took their shoes and other stuff, and a Good Samaritan took them to the hospital after the police ignored them. So the story is just really, really, really wild. But before we jump into it, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. Please check out different merchandise that we have at the store, like that I'm not the victim you're looking for. I got the, goat hoodie and goat shirts and stuff. I do have different colors if you're interested in that. The Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden, with a list of his racist stuff on the back. Be Better Not Bitter, all kinds of stuff you guys can check out on the website. Also have different books that you guys can check out. Make sure that you guys look at, of course, Guys Blatantly Against Abortion. I do have this available for pre-order. So please, if you want to, on ebook, go ahead and pre-order it now. Pre-order it today. And if you want the paperback, please get it on the day, on the 26th. I did put out a trailer for it on Facebook and on YouTube. I'll also arrange it in a short as well, but it was just a little bit over a minute, so I'm gonna recut it. But go ahead and share it, especially on Facebook. They would not give it a good automatic traction for whatever reason. So please take the time to scroll down a little bit, and it's my pinned thing on Twitter. It's my pinned thing on Facebook. Go ahead and share that, please. Share it around, tag people, let other people know who you think might be interested to go ahead and get the book Like I keep saying, it's a really big labor of love. Also, I have other books that I've written. I did an interview last night on a channel on YouTube, a smaller channel, but I had a lot of fun, and I talked about my books, mainly Super Kid. This book, it's a for like eight, it's middle grade, so it's a true middle grade, like 8 to 12. I've had kids as young as 6 pick it up though. It just kind of depends what their reading level is, but it's a really funny book. Um, and so she was talking. The interview was talking about how she just really enjoyed it, and it's funny because I wrote this book. Is 2011 or 12 or something is when it was released. So when it was released, my nephew wasn't born yet, and he's like 7 now, so he's about the same age as the main character. And just the funny things that kids say or their thought process and stuff, I'm just like, I nailed it. I nailed the voice of these kids, and because they just their his thought process and the things that they say that are so, they don't mean to be funny, but they'll say something that's just like, kids are so hilarious. So it's a very light-hearted book with a lot of good values in it. It's not like a political book in the least or whatever, and they appreciate it because it's not woke and there's a bunch of woke stuff people are trying to feed their kids, but it's got good, wholesome, old-fashioned sort of values in it. And so it's a good, wholesome book for your kids, and they will find it really funny. And I think if you read it with them, you'll find it really funny. And it's also very moving and touching, and have some complex emotions in there too. And I have other books for older readers and stuff too, like young adult and stuff. So if you go to Black Tea News and you go to the merchandise, there's a banner on there at the top with my books on it. Take you to my book website. You can learn more, or you can just search my name, Christina L. Barr, on Amazon, and follow me on Amazon, which you people have been doing, so I appreciate that. And of course, Guys Blatantly Against Abortion is my 16th published book, but number 17 is not far from it. I hope to have that out by Comic-Con, when I go to Comic-Con. My sister Katrina, loving the Vegeta quote in your title. Yes, Men in Pink, how bizarre. Kudos to anyone who caught that, which she obviously did, and of course she would, and she did. And also, if you like Black Tea News, please consider leaving a donation at blackteenews.com. You can give stars on Facebook. You can do super chats and whatever on YouTube. But if you can, directly to the website and want to give that way, it's very much appreciated. You can also stream, run my website, etc., all that good stuff. So if you like to help with some of that overhead and to help us continue expanding, I really appreciate it. And to build some other infrastructure for, the website, the platform, etc. I mentioned yesterday that Matt Walsh got demonetized from YouTube, and they said it was it said it was kind of vague, and they said it was because of Dylan Mulvaney, something about him, but they weren't really specific. I have other theories, because I'm like, a lot of people do stuff on Dylan, and I don't know that YouTube entirely cares that much, because it creates a lot of buzz and traction, whatever. But he's done some videos on other YouTube stars that have a lot more pull. So I'm not convinced it was Dylan, but there was such controversy over a particular rant, which I'm assuming is the video that they pointed to. I don't know. They weren't very specific, and apparently YouTube wasn't very specific. I assume because my video covering that got taken down. I was alerted today that it was taken down. So that's unfortunate, but it didn't count against me. They just took it down. But make sure that you're following me across different platforms. And I guess I'll put on Rumble. So make sure that you follow me on Rumble too, especially if you haven't seen that video, because I've posted a few things on there, and I will eventually start going live on Rumble. But make sure that you go ahead and follow, and I will post more things. I stream at multiple places at once. I'm using particular software to do that. So again, it costs to do all those things. So if you make sure that you guys are supporting in that kind of way. I do not have a meme for you guys. I'm just gonna start getting to the different stories, which this one is kind of silly, so maybe it's meme enough. But there's this video going around today of Men in Pink, how bizarre. in up in Canada, and not just any men. It's their politicians in the Pink Hills, and apparently it's because they want to raise awareness about domestic violence and stuff against women, and I just don't think this is the way to do that. But it's a little clip. Yeah. So I find that horribly. When I always see things like that, I find them horribly unattractive and disgusting. I'm like I don't think those things are funny, and there's women clapping around, and maybe you guys think maybe it's not that deep for you guys, and maybe it's not that deep, period. But that's just like I have a revulsion toward those sorts of things, and you like, you're too into gender roles. Like, what is that supposed to do? Like, for it's something that's like a serious subject, and I guess we're all talking about it, but are we all talking about domestic violence and the issues concerning women, or are we talking about them walking around in heels? Because it's not the heels abusing us, it's um you know I would assume their focus is men who are committing domestic abuse and violence toward women. So men we depend on men to step up for women by not being less masculine, but being masculine, but being masculine in a positive sense, to be chivalrous and to be protectors and to be providers and to be our advocates, to be our partners. You know, we appreciate constructive masculinity in a good direction. So putting on heels or whatever. One time there was some kind of International Women's Day thing or something, and James Bond, Daniel Craig or something, there was a video they did, and they had the woman Judi Dench was narrating and talking about all the plights or whatever that women go through or something. And at first you're just looking at him in a suit, like his Bond suit, and then all of a sudden he's in a dress and like in drag and makeup and stuff, and he made a horrible woman. Like, he's not my cup of tea, period. But like, I'm like, why do this? Why switch it like that? Like, what are you trying to get at? Just like trying to I don't know, humiliate him or like in that way. Maybe he didn't find humiliating or other people watching it, but I didn't like it. I didn't think whatever the heck they were trying to do, they were making a good point. Or if it's just to get people to talk, congrats. But I think there's other ways besides like silly shock value, or cross-dressing to get attention to your cause. So I don't like that. I don't like that. Again, if men want to help women, you don't do that by, being less masculine or doing something more feminine. That's not what we need you for. It's not what we need you for at all, in the least. But we are feminine enough. We don't need you to to assume that role in the least bit. We need you to be strong, masculine men, and you stand up against other evil men. That's what women need you to do. We don't need you to put on pink high heels. That's not what we need, ever, ever. So, a lot of people are talking about it. I don't like stuff like that. I saw people in comments like from the US are like, well, at least we're not Canadians, but we got our own problems, obviously. But that weird stuff going on in the world today. Moving on, since we're on this particular topic, there's a super viral video with this. I'll just start off playing with it. You guys can see what kind of awful content it is. But this is like the extreme side on the far end. Even like a lot of people talking about Dylan and Jeffrey Marsh and stuff, like they haven't said anything. There's been like veiled threats and stuff that we've covered, that we've talked about, but this is blatant, blatant.
Into a corner, they're going to become a dangerous animal. So if you want to die on that hill of yours of righteousness and moral majority, then you go right ahead. I dare you to try and stop me from going into a women's bathroom. It will be the last mistake you ever make. I dare you to try and stop a transgender woman in my presence from using the bathroom. It will be the last mistake you ever make. This is a call to action and a call to arms to everybody within the United States that are scared, worried, have children that are transgender, lesbian, bi, or gay. This is a call to action. You need to arm up, plain and simple. Go out, buy a gun, learn how to use it efficiently, through and through, because the time to act is now. You need to protect yourself and you need to protect your fellow transgender brothers and sisters and theys and thems. You need to protect the rest of us in the LGBT community, as I'm going to do myself. Because there are lots of people like me who are not afraid to die. I love my girlfriends to death, but I would rather die for them to secure their safety, freedom, and future than to live and not have anything done. So you go ahead. You protect your kids.
So I'm not concerned or afraid of strong men. I'm concerned about what how dangerous weak men like this can be, and how desperate and disgusting that they will be. Um, he's talking about taking out up arms over bathrooms, not people saying like let's round up everyone and send them to the funny farm without their consent or something. That's not like conversations that are going on today. You know, people are upset because there's people are upset about the Florida Parental Rights and Education bill, which was just like, hey, if there's like mental health stuff going on with kids, like people at schools can't hide them, and you don't teach gender identity stuff and sexual orientation stuff to kids, you know, K through 3 or another grades if it's inappropriate. And there's other bills that are like it, or if there's bills across the country, of course, they're saying like, hey, don't give puberty blockers to kids or cut off their boobs young and stuff. So there's bills making its way across the country, and people are fighting, pushing back, etc. By the way, the House passed a bill. I think it was about women's sports and stuff, protecting women's sports, and all the Democrats like voted no against it. But it's not going to make it past the Senate, and Biden was going to veto it anyway. So, I guess you got to try with that stuff. But like it was probably they knew it wasn't gonna get anywhere. I don't know. Maybe they could think like, well, we'll see if they're that crazy to vote against something that most people would really want this protection. Anyway, um, there's stuff like that, but nothing that warrants this kind of reaction from this individual, this blatant threat, this call to arms over the bathroom. And this thing where they're like, oh, they want to protect their kids. What? Mocking women because they want to protect their kids, because they're concerned about their kids. And Dylan Mulvaney had a bathroom video too, like he was rating bathrooms, and he said, and he gave the amusement park bathroom a low rating. Partly he's like, this is where conservative women will judge me, with their children or something. And like those kind of men that like don't want to be protectors, don't want to be chivalrous, you know, those are the worst, the worthless ones. Certainly. Why are you upset about women who want the mama bears out there who want to protect their kids? I've seen videos of trans allies or trans people who say like, well, they understand why women are so afraid, because the cis men have made them so afraid. And that's not true. It's not entirely true. Um, Women like men, you know. I love my dad. I love my brother. There's men in my church who, I love, admire. I've had a lot of male friends throughout my life. We all we talk about Dragon Ball Z together, all sorts of things. Um, I want to marry man. I would like to have a son one day. We like men. Now there's some women who don't like men too much, but most of us, we really, really like men, you know? So it's not that we're afraid of men. If I like had desperate situation, woman's line is to the restroom is wrapped around and no one's in the men's bathroom, and like I'm about to bust, I'm not afraid that if I go into the men's bathroom and relieve myself, that I will go in not assaulted and walk out like deeply traumatized and disturbed because, something bad happened. That's not like something that I would fear about all the time, or really at all, that's a prominent like fear. And I don't think it will be for most women, you know? I don't, if you accidentally wandered into the men's room, which just like happened before, it's not like, oh, I'm so afraid because I came in the men's bath. Like it's not like that. But there are certain situations, like we are aware of the fact that men are generally stronger than us. So I talk about, firearms, and I say it's an equalizer. Ladies, go get yourself a gun and be trained and know how to use that, because you don't want to be in a situation where a man is attacking you. It's just a fact. You can have reasonable concerns. There's irrational fears, and there's rational fears, and there's reasonable concerns, and the deficit of power between men and women, that's a reasonable concern. So make sure you just have, you go get yourself a firearm, and protect yourself, protect your babies. So but when you're in a situation and there's some kind of aggression, or men come up in your spot or something, then it's like alarm bells goes off, right? I don't mind, like some women like really, really dislike catcalling, and that was, a thing that people were really, really on the internet complaining about past couple of years. But guys saying, "Hey, mom, you look cute. Like, will you smile for me? Whatever, just a little smile. Keep it moving. Don't engage too much because you don't want to false hope, or I don't know. Just keep it moving." But I've talked about it before. Like one time I was at work in Lansing, and I was just like a couple blocks from the building. I was playing Pokemon Go, walking around, and a couple guys came up on me, and they were really, really aggressive, and it made me so uncomfortable. It was a scary situation, and I was on my phone. I was definitely like I was in between, like, should I call someone or like, I tried to not engage but not engage like too much so it will set them off or whatever, and just kept kind of walking in a direction until it was like in line of sight of where they probably wouldn't attack me, but it was like, or do something. But how they came up, it was so aggressive, and I'm not a scary person. I feel like I could, you know I'm not so, girl power or whatever, that I feel like I could get to a lot of fights with dudes, and feel that I could just take them because I'm a big woman. But I mean, there's some guys I could take in a fight, but and I would have put up a good fight and stuff. But I was, that was a time when I was alarmed. But when situations like that happen, when people are in spaces where they don't belong, that's when women are like, alarm bells are going off. So there is something to be said about the fact that there are men so desperate to have access to our spaces, and that's weird, and we don't trust it. So it's not that we're just so afraid of men in general that's why we just don't want them in our spaces. It's just that these are our spaces. Why do you want access to them when we're like in a vulnerable kind of setting? I mean, we go in there to pee and poo, we do some, maybe change our baby or something. But that's why, we're in there. We'll hang out a little bit sometimes, and you like, come to the bathroom with me. But I never did anything like that. I never had like a bathroom buddy or something. That wasn't my world. But there's something weird about it. There's something weird about it, and I can understand that there's trans women who feel like they belong there because they've done so much work or whatever, which this is not a passable person. But if women say, no, you don't belong here, then we don't understand why that can't be respected. I can understand why you don't want to accept it, but on some level, I don't understand why you can't respect that, because someone has to lose in the situation, and I don't understand why it has to be women. I mean, I would not want to be in your shoes. Um, to go through what you go through, to have that kind of conflict with your mind and your body. I wouldn't volunteer for that. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So it's not that I'm not sympathetic, but deciding to, we talked about this yesterday, because someone said if blue or white, it doesn't make sense for someone to have C cup tits and think that they can't have access to like a bathroom or a locker room. And I'm like, it's not my fault that they bought themselves breasts. That was a decision that they made. That doesn't give you cover to just like, it doesn't grant you access to all these women's spaces because you bought a pair of tits. What if a man buys some rubber tits or something? Does that give them access to the bathroom? If they go in, like women are more than an aesthetic that you can buy, that you can purchase. It's not that simple. It's not that simple. So you may not want to accept it, but you got to respect it, that we're like, no, you don't belong here. So this attitude, this anger that people have about, and some people are just bummed. Some people are upset, but people who are like this dude, and then there's others. I haven't seen anyone like this aggressive about it before. So that's one reason why his video's gone like so viral, because it's so deranged. It's so deranged. But it is weird when people want that access so badly. And there's even people, like I mentioned the other day, back in the Obama administration, there was a kid who they were fighting for boys to be able to go in girls' locker rooms or whatever, etc. And there was one case in like Illinois, and there was a boy, he said he was a girl and he wanted to go in the girls' locker room and stuff. And so the school is trying to make accommodations, like, well, we can give you a special space. They didn't even want a special space. They wanted access. They didn't want to be made to feel different. Well, you are different, and you are choosing to do something that's way outside of the norm. So why do all the other girls have to suffer? And I did not feel comfortable changing even around like a bunch of girls in the locker room. I would go like in the bathroom stall and change. I didn't kind of get over that till I was like older and going to gyms, and and not going to the bathroom stall or whatever to change. Would just do it out, in front of, in the locker area. But so I can't imagine being a teenage girl and then there's a boy in there with you changing. That would be so awkward. I would hate it, and I would be that school's nightmare. I would not go quietly into the night about that at all. Not me or my dad, like or my mom. That just would not have flown. But we talk about it a lot right now, but a lot of this stuff really, really bubbled and started under the Obama administration. People who really like him, he started a lot of things that put us on this trajectory that we're here now. So, if it was a different time, he was radical for the stuff that he was doing, even though maybe I don't know. It was always a thing. A lot of you guys were just asleep at the wheel. You just really are. You just really were. You really were. So there's a lot of people out there who are trans, and they just want to live their life. They're just trying to live, the best way that they feel is possible for themselves and their condition. And they don't want to make waves like all these other people are making waves. And my heart goes out to them. But there are people who don't want to just live as a woman. They want you to totally buy into it. And if you don't, then you're a bigot. Like, it's not enough, like with Leah Thomas or William Thomas and stuff, saying like, oh, if I'm if I'm really a woman and you accept me as a woman, then I have to be able to play in your sports. It doesn't make sense that you won't let me play in your sports if you really believe I'm a woman. And I saw another video like that the other day saying, no, you have to allow us on your sports team because that's how you validate and pledge fealty to to their sense of self. So that's one reason why I'm like, I don't think we should entertain any of it. Even like some of the bathroom thing for me is not just a safety issue. It's really also, mainly for me, it's probably about principle. But there are people who are concerned. Again, it's really alarming when there's all these people who are so insistent and even angry that they can't have access to these spaces. And what really, 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 really bothers me is these people who mock women who are like, I want to protect my kids. That really bothers me. I don't trust people who don't, who won't support people trying to protect their kids in those sort of settings and stuff. It really rubs me the wrong way, and I will look at you side eye for the rest of eternity for saying stuff like that. So mocking these women in the bathrooms or with their kids, and a man comes in, and they're concerned for their safety and the kids' safety. Or if you would, when kids get a little older, sometimes you send them to the bathroom a lot, like in a restaurant or something, you send them to the bathroom or something alone, because you got other kids, like maybe you're at a table and you got like 5 other kids with you, and your kid's like, I don't know, 10 or something. You send them to the bathroom and expect that they'll come back without any kind of drama. And there's someone in there who's not supposed to be in there. Those things are concerning to moms, and to mock them, you're on a list, pal. You're on a list. But moving on, not from a different subject, but to kind of do a different point, that man was totally deranged. And there are people who are identifying and being uplifted, and they don't have genuine gender dysphoria, or there's other reasons that it's kind of manifesting in that sort of way. And there's doctors that don't want to get to the root of that. I read an article about I thought I was protecting the trans kids, but now I'm blowing the whistle. I read that entire article. You guys can go check out that video, or you can go read the article. It was with the Free Press. Barry Weiss, one of the two, I think is how you say her name. But they posted the article. So it was someone who worked at, for like gender clinics and stuff. And there was a lot of things that they looked at and noticed that were really, really heinous. But there was also concern about how there's some people who are very unwell, who they would just move on and recommend, to get hormones and other stuff like that. Like people who were like, I think maybe they were even torturing dogs or something, like violent stuff. And they just move on. So I'm going to play this video of a testimony of someone who detransitioned. Now they weren't violent or anything, but they weren't well, and they had different other traumas that weren't addressed, but they were moved toward gender affirmation. And she did some permanent damage to her body. And this is happening all too often.
Everyone, my name is Laura Becker. At 19, I went to a gender clinic and told them I was suicidal, and they prescribed me 200 milligrams of testosterone for free in a 1-hour appointment. I injected 200 milligrams every week as a 5'2" female with already elevated testosterone and hormonal imbalances from polycystic ovarian syndrome. My mental health severely degenerated, and I entered an impulsive and reckless state of consciousness. My undiagnosed childhood trauma was triggered, and I felt desperate to transition. I went to several different therapists who told me that I was valid in my trans identity. My psychiatrist diagnosed me with gender dysphoria in one appointment. Despite being suicidal, autistic, exhibiting symptoms of trauma, and being only 20 years old, she said that according to the WPATH standards of care, I was stable enough to consent to having my breasts removed. I removed my breasts entirely, and I thought it would relieve at least some of my complex distress. But it only escalated, and at 22, I was finally diagnosed with PTSD. I started to awaken and realize that I had been in a survival state for all this time, and the desire to transition was due to childhood trauma and the illusionary magical thinking of the gender transition fantasy that I had developed to help me survive had hurt me in the long run. I detransitioned at 22 and have since been deprogramming and going through paradigm shifts of existential life, death, and rebirth. I'm now several years into trauma-informed therapy for complex PTSD, have embraced myself with confidence as an artist, writer, and speaker. My artist and musician name is Funk God, because I'm a supremely funky and groovy woman. Despite creative abundance in my life, I experience grief every day, because instead of being able to remove my broken heart, I removed my breasts, my divine femininity. I just wanted to feel safe, loved, and appreciated for my funky self. But due to the lies of gender affirmation, I have lost that.
So there's plenty other stories like that where people had other kind of conditions and issues going on, but they're so quick to affirm. You can call Planned Parenthood and they'll give you like hormones in like 30 minutes, according to several testimonies and stuff that from detransitioners. Very easy to get access to those different things, and they are. Brad Palumbo said the other day, like there's no reasonable doctors just chopping up people or something, because Michael Knowles made a comparison about like people with other disorders, like not feeling like you're disabled. So if you go to a doctor and say, hey, I want you to chop off my arm, like a doctor's not going to do that. And so Brad was like, nobody's just chopping up people. No, doctor. And I'm just like, what do you mean nobody's doing that? People are literally doing that for this, belief, or for people to be able to be the opposite gender. And it's just not, something that is true. And if it's just a construct and just about how you feel, then you wouldn't need to physically do anything. But people understand that gender is tied to biology, and that's why people try to mimic it. So we're doing a lot of harm in our society. Speaking of harm in our society, Chicago, so you guys are aware, we talked about earlier this week, but there was a huge massive display of violence and crime and stuff over the past weekend, and there was a lot of kids involved. So there's one story that was very viral going around with a video of a bunch of kids like beating up this couple. At the time, I don't think a lot of people knew it was a couple. They just thought they were attacking this white woman, and Fox News did a report on them. So I'm going to go ahead and play their interview because it was really viral. So a lot of people were like, oh, they're just beating them because she's white. And I don't know if that's really the case. I just said that what they did was evil. I think that was pretty much my narrative around it. And what they did was evil. But the mayor says we shouldn't demonize kids. So we'll mayor-elect anyway. So we'll get to that. But here's that interview. Like, what happened was pretty crazy.
Able to speak to the couple that were at the center of that now viral attack on the streets of Chicago over the weekend. They described what happened in their own words. Listen.
Well, I just recently saw the video, but we were just downtown in Chicago trying to shop, trying to get some food. And we were walking down the street, and there was a really big group of guys, a really big group of people.
And girls.
Yeah, guys and girls. And, DJ had my hand, and he was trying to lead me through the crowd of people. And they pushed him, they pushed me. And as soon as they pushed me, I told DJ, I said, hey, they just shoved me. And he asked them, he was like, yo, don't shove her, who shoved her? And as soon as he said that, everything went crazy. They said they're gonna kill us. They turned around and, started fighting,
So sorry
I got pushed down to the ground, and I got pushed down to the ground, and the whole group of people went to DJ, not me. Like, I have a lot less injuries than he does because I was more of a bystander than anything, but everyone went for him, and it ended up in the middle of the street. They were jumping him in the middle of the street. It got pretty bad.
I'm just so sorry to hear that. DJ, what were the extent of your injuries after all this, you and Ashley's injuries?
As you can see, I don't know if you can see or not, I have a black eye. My face is messed up. Shoulder is pretty up too. I'm pretty sure it's out of place or something. My back, sore. My nose, I don't know what's wrong with my nose. It's swollen. I don't know what's going on with it, but get it checked out soon. And her injuries.
Do you believe that you two were targeted in this attack, or do you believe this was random?
It was very random, because all we were doing, we had just left Nordstrom, and we were looking for somewhere to eat, and we saw that group, and they just thought they was tough, and they want to move out the way, just out there being stupid, young and dumb, trying to prove a point for nothing. So, and that's how that happened.
And you were also...
Yeah, it was absolutely...
Go ahead, Ashley.
It was just absolutely random. We didn't know anybody. We were just trying to walk through a group of people.
And you were also robbed, right? Were things taken from you, Ashley?
Yes.
Oh, DJ?
Yes.
Yeah.
Both of our pairs of shoes, my Yeezys, her sandals, her Apple Watch, my hat. We had just bought the shit.
Both our
The
phones.
Glasses, her glasses, both our phones. Cops drove right by it.
Oh.
Act like they didn't see anything.
While DJ was getting jumped in the middle of the street, that's when I was getting up off the ground, and I saw the cops just drive by. They almost had to avoid the collision to get past us, but they just drove by the incident in the middle of the street.
So the cops just drove right on by while they were getting jumped while all this was going on with that crowd of kids. You see how young those kids looked? All those kids, I don't know what all their ages were, but they look all like minors, basically, jumping on this couple, stealing their stuff, their shoes, her sandals. They said the watch. A good Samaritan came by and actually took them to the hospital and went home and then grabbed them some shoes. So that's a wild story. So Brandon Johnson, the mayor-elect of Chicago, he had put out a statement about some of the craziness, and he wouldn't condemn the people or the actions, really, that, you know, not like he should have or anything like that, but Lori Lightfoot wouldn't really condemn the kids and stuff either, but he like doubled down when he was asked about it, saying we don't demonize kids.
Look, demonizing children is wrong. We have to keep them safe as well. Have you ever taught middle school? I have. Have you ever raised young people? Do you understand the risk that young people take just because they're young? Do you know that home plate is at the bottom of my stairs? I found that out when my son was sliding down those stairs trying to score. They're young. Sometimes they make silly decisions. They do. And so we have to make sure that we are investing to make sure that young people know that they are supported.
So you guys just saw the video that I showed you and everybody, like, you know, jumping that couple and stuff. So a silly decision is probably something like sliding down the stairs to get to home plate. A silly decision. When my sister was like 4 or something, she was walking on the back of the couch or arm of the couch or whatever, and she had a donut in one hand, right? So it shouldn't have been walking like on the couch like it was a balance beam or something, especially since she had no balance. Still does not to this day. But she had the donut and she had a choice, right? And she had a choice that she could let go of the donut and try to regain her balance, or she could hold on to the donut, fall, and then break her arm. Now, you might think the choice is obvious, but I have to give you some more information. It was a sprinkled donut, okay? So since it was a sprinkled donut, actually, I don't know if that's specifically the reason, but she held on to that donut and she fell and she broke her arm and she had to go to the hospital. She had to have a cast. She was like the first, I think, kid out of the 7 of us that had a broken bone, and she was the youngest. And my dad loves, like, that's what happens when you don't drink enough milk and whatever, but she was crying as they took her to that hospital, but she was still eating that donut. She saved that donut. So that's a silly thing, right? You know, kids do dumb things. Sometimes they don't listen with stuff, you know, but silly is a far more frivolous word than that described what happened. What they were doing was evil, and I'm not damning them to hell. I'm not saying they're beyond redemption and that they're irredeemable, like a basket of deplorables or something like that, like Hillary Clinton would say. But what they did was evil, and it's okay to call that out. And he said, you know, you gotta, have you raised children? Who are raising these kids? Are they being raised? Is the question? Is their parents at home? Like, where are their parents? Where are or their grandmothers? Whoever's, you know, taking care of these kids, and what are the values that they're instilling in them? And it goes beyond, like, excuse me, stealing is bad. Stealing and hurting people is bad. Coveting after things that people have that aren't yours is bad. Even if you thought that they were rich and then they could afford to lose an Apple Watch or something, it's still bad to do those things. And we need to instill a sense of shame back into society, back into kids. But saying, like, oh, it's just a silly thing, and we got to be there for them and do stuff in the community for you do, but you're just giving them this excuse, like this pass, like, oh, they're young, that, you know what kind of risk people have just being young? What does that mean? Like, we've all been young. I've never jumped a crowd of, you know, a couple before with a bunch of other kids that, you know, you get a mob of people and you get some hoodlums and they start doing stuff, and then you feel brave enough to be that childish and ruthless, and you know, someone needs to say, no, what happened was awful. You guys were awful for doing that, and you don't need to be around other people that are going to influence you to do bad like that. And we're going to, I don't know, you're not leaving the church whatever till you get whatever you need to do to instill some kind of virtue and justice back into these kids. But saying, oh, we just don't demonize kids and we need to do other things, and you're giving all these excuses for why they are the way they are. I'm not saying there's not explanations to that sort of behavior and that other people shouldn't be held accountable. But those kids were grown enough to know what they did was wrong. They were grown enough to know better. I don't know what age you have to be to know that it's bad to just beat on people like that and steal their shoes, their Apple Watch, all that stuff. They're lucky that they only had, like, black eyes and scratches, and he said maybe his shoulders popped out of place and his nose is a bit busted. I'm glad they're okay beyond that. And thank God for the Good Samaritan who took him to the hospital, since the police just kept driving on by. This is like a lost city, and it's only getting worse. They got rid of Lori Lightfoot. I said the other day, like, they got rid of Scarecrow and now they got Bane instead. It's like, let the city go to the criminals or whatever. So, no, what they did was abhorrent, and it's okay to say so. It's okay to say so, and it's not okay what they did. And you want to get them back to a better path, but just giving them activities to do and then not addressing the behavior and holding them accountable for it, you're just going to create more crime, which he's way out of his depth, but that's who they voted for. That's who they voted for. Oh, gosh. Anyway, last thing I want to say today is I watched a podcast today with one of the people who used to be on Steven Crowder's TV show, and there was a whole drama with Daily Wire and Steven Crowder earlier this year, back in January. It happened when I was at the March for Life, because everybody was giving all this commentary. I'm like, I'm too busy. I'm on the road. I can't say anything. But it was good that I didn't speak too early, because by the time I got to film something about it, I had watched, you know, Steven's first video. I'd watched Daily Wire's rebuttal, Jeremy's video. I watched Steven's, like, leak tape with the phone call on it. And then I watched, like, other commentators who knew them both. So I feel like I had a really balanced take. So if you haven't watched it, and go back and watch it, that video. I spent a lot of time on it, you know, to give a really fair and clear take. But one thing that Steven said, and this is the podcast if you guys want to go look at it. It was like, You're Welcome, which that title of the show is, because I'm just looking at it, I'm like, he knows that you know that it's grammatically incorrect. with Michael Malice, but Dave Lindau, he was on Steven's show, and he was like the third chair for, you know, a while, sitting in the studio. I've seen him on the show. I used to watch Steven Crowder like religiously, but I haven't really in a while. I just pick it up every now and then, and I guess I haven't. He did bring his show back, but I haven't seen it since his old tiff with Daily Wire. And so he left the show, and so the podcast is him explaining why, because he didn't want other people to speak on it and make up stuff or fans to speculate. So he just laid out how their relationship kind of deteriorated and how unfairly that he was treated, and the things that he described. I'm just like, Steven had no right. I won't say no right, but some nerve to complain about all the things they complain about with Daily Wire and their contract. And it really does make it seem like the whole Stop Big Con thing was theatrics, or if not theatrics, and just pure hypocrisy or whatever. So Dave did say that at first it started with Steven like censoring him, which he has some crude jokes. So I'm not like, I'm okay with him being censored on some of the stuff that he was saying. Because they were like gross. Like, you know, in my opinion. I think a lot of people's opinion, but it was gross in my opinion. But he started talking, he mentioned that one thing he mentioned that debunks Steven, like he said, he claimed when he recorded Daily Wire or whatever, he's only recorded 3 phone calls in his life. And if you watch Steven Crowder, you know that sometimes he does phone calls to like, and does undercover or secret stuff. I think there's just probably more evidence on his show that that's just not apparent. That's not true, that he's only recorded 3 people in his life, and one of them is Jeremy Boring. That just didn't seem true. And then Corey Black Jarrett, who used to be on a show, he confirmed that he wasn't surprised that Steven recorded them, because he's like, that's just what Steven does. So Dave was like, everybody knows that Steven records like everything. He records your conversations. If you call Steven, he's recording. Like, basically, like, that's what the staff and whatever, or different people know. So him, and he thought it, Dave said he thought it was so wrong for him to release that phone call with Jeremy and to act like what Daily Wire offered him was slave wages. And when that number came out with how much Daily Wire was offering, Dave had to like kind of step back, because they had just terminated his contract and wanted him to renegotiate something else where he'd be doing more work with less money. And Steven wanted to like own his like stand-up stuff that he was doing when he would go out. And there was something that Dave put out himself, and Steven was just like really upset that that he couldn't put it out and stuff. And at one point they had a conversation, and Steven told him like, own you. And so a lot of weird stuff going on. And they would complain about Dave like not coming to work on different stuff on Friday, like when they would like, I don't know, make sketches or whatever. And so, but he said when he would come, Steven wouldn't show up. Steven wouldn't be there. And so after a while, he's just like, I don't want to, because he doesn't live in Texas with them. He's like, I don't want to show up and be here and do stuff if you guys aren't going to be there. And Gerald was like, well, even if we're not here, you still need to be there. And he's just like, what the heck for? Like, that doesn't, it's like, even if you're not work or you can't work or you don't end up working, you still should be there. And he's just like, that's a waste of time. And then they wanted to give him his own show in his new contract, but they didn't want to pay him for doing an extra show. So, and then they wanted him to be available on the weekends, but he was doing stand-up, and weekends are when people go on the road to do comedy. And so that's where he's starting to make some more money for himself. So that didn't make sense either. And then they wouldn't let him plug his show when he'd go on the road. So he said one time he was out somewhere and someone was like, hey, you're such and such. And he's like, yeah, like, what are you doing here? He's like, I'm doing a show. And he's like, why don't you announce it on the show? Like, you should really announce your dates. And then he like, you know, in his mind feels bad, but he knows that they told him like, hey, don't announce your stuff. Don't say it. So they won't even let them announce stuff on the air. So Steven Crowder going on this crusade of like Daily Wire's bad, Daily Wire's done this, etc. Or you know, and I'm going to be the one to uplift the next generation and help all these people. And some people, especially like on the Timcast interview, they're like, well, people are like, who have you helped? Because they've heard other stories about how he treated not gay Jared or Sven Computer, and like, who have you uplifted to help, you know, to get to the next level? And so, and now you're hearing that he wouldn't even let someone who's working with him just announce on the show that he's doing a tour. So there are other stories as well. So it was, if you were interested in that whole drama, it was a juicy interview to learn some stuff about what was going on. And I guess if you take his side of things, his side of things, I mean, they are his side. So I don't know if Steven will address it or whatever. Probably not. He'll probably ignore it. So, but he did read stuff from his contract or whatever that they tried to like negotiate with him. And, but when he said like Steven just wasn't showing up for stuff, I'm like, well, no wonder that he was so mad when Daily Wire put in their term sheet, like, if you don't produce things, then you will lose money. Because apparently, you know, you don't know when you can trust them to show up. So, it was fascinating. Too bad that, you know, it imploded that way. But Dave said he doesn't want like the ship to go down or anything like that. But people kept asking, people kept speculating. So he wanted to go ahead and share what had happened. So, but he did say when he left that Steven did like give him a nice bit of change, you know, cash or whatever. He didn't say how much it was. I mean, that's not our business. But once when it came out that with like the 50 million or whatever, I think that's the max they're willing to go to for Steven. He just was contemplating like, what, like, I'm not being paid more, or why did they just try to screw me with money, and were they worth that much? And, and he's like, how much would he be making? And so and when they kept saying it's not about the money, he's just like, that doesn't make sense. And I didn't think it made sense either. And a lot of people were like, who were like so hardcore Steven Crowder's like, it's not about the money. I'm like, that doesn't make sense, guys. It's obviously about the money. But one thing that was like messed up though is that Steven Crowder talked about on Tim Cash show, he had mentioned that he had a gay Cuban agent who was great. So Dave mentioned in the interview that he had a gay Cuban agent. I'm like, that's interesting. That's got to be the same guy. So the agent was first Dave's agent, and so he ended up meeting Steven, that agent, through Dave, the agent, and Steven connected or whatever. And he kind of about it. Like, he would ask like, oh no, we're not doing anything. And then Dave in his mind was just kind of like, why am I getting screwed on like terms and stuff? And whatever. But he started taking on Steven. So now Steven is his big client and stuff. So I'm like, that's real messed up. That's really messed up, especially when you think about, I mean, and that happens, you know, have a talent and you switch over, whatever. But Steven was really upset about Daily Wire openly poaching, like trying to poach their employee. So it's disappointing, you know, how some of these folks act, I guess, or to hear how they act or allegedly act, because you don't know. But there's other people who've you know, said similar kind of stories. So I mean, I'm inclined to kind of believe this tale about Crowder, but it's too bad. I continuously say like, there's this verse in the Bible, like, follow me as I follow Christ, with like Apostle Paul saying that, like, you know, you could appreciate people standing up for the values and the different ideas and stuff, but people are still human. Like, I appreciate people who follow me, like you, who like me, and other stuff like that. And I very much appreciate your support, but you know, I'm still human. You know, I'm not out there doing anything bad or anything, but you can take my word for it, or you can't, or don't, or whatever. But you know, I just don't believe you should have too much hero worship or any kind of hero worship. You should take people as they are, You agree with them with some stuff. Maybe you disagree with them on some things. But I mean, humans are very complex. So I don't think you should attach your heart too much to a person. So when they fall, you're just like utterly crushed. And that's just my advice. That's just my advice. But I'll try to do right by all you. I'm just here representing myself and being myself. So so I don't think there's anything to really represent you. You just kind of see what you get. Anyway, again, I'll show that screen cap again if anyone wants to watch that interview. But it was about an hour or so, maybe longer than an hour. But it was very interesting if you're interested in that sort of drama at all. But Dave said people were saying all these commentary like who was right, who was wrong, and he thought like clearly Steven was in the wrong, especially with the recording of the phone call. Especially since he was like, oh, this is a smoking gun. I'm like, what Jeremy said was like not crazy at all. So I thought Steven was in the wrong. People disagreed with me, but I gave it a lot of thought. It wasn't something I jumped to the gun with the conclusions. I took a lot of time. And my video is still very fair. If you want to go revisit that, it's, in my video logs or whatever. You can go find it. Thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please go to blacktnews.com. Check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. Make sure that you guys are signing up for emails and updates so you know what's going on. And make sure that you're following me on different platforms besides YouTube. I appreciate all these new people who've come. I hit 60,000 yesterday. 60,000 followers, so thank you so much for following. But make sure that you're following me on other places as well. I do have a Rumble. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. If you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, there should be links to different things that you can follow me at. So make sure you follow me across the board. Also, if you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. It costs to stream, costs to run my website, all sorts of things. And there's needs that we have, different equipment that I need to take care of and get and replace. And also trying to build some more infrastructure and stuff with the show. So if you can help out in that way, God bless you. Really appreciate you. If you can't, I thank you guys for watching, for commenting. All that stuff really does help as well. And please make sure that you guys pre-order. Of course, God is blatantly against abortion. I did a live talking about this last night on TikTok and went through, different themes and stuff that's in the book. I took a long time talking about sexual assault. Actually, someone in the comments asked, about it, because that's what people throw out there even though that's not really their position. Their position is all babies are on the chopping block, but sometimes they just say it because they want to throw you off. So, but I do deal with that heavily in the book. With not just that one, but life of the mother and an illness of a child, etc. So it deals with so much about the abortion debate in general, not just the theological perspective of it, but it is really I guess I could do another book that dives into particular concepts, but it covers so much. So it covers biology, theology, and philosophy and societal harm of abortion, all kinds of different things. So, I believe if you read it, your iron will be sharpened. And even if you're kind of on the fence or whatever, I think it's good to read and to get through. Maybe you'll be challenged in a good way. So, there's that. I did put out a trailer today. If you're watching on Facebook, take a second and please go and share the video that I put out. I don't know why Facebook is choking it or whatever, but it didn't have any traction when I posted it. So please share it up there. Please share it on Twitter. Please share it on YouTube. I'm about to recut it and put it as a short as well. So make sure, and I'll put on TikTok and other places, on Instagram. So make sure that you guys go ahead and share it to help with the launch. So you can pre-order right now if you want to get it on ebook. If you wanted the paperback version, you're gonna have to wait till the day, but please order it as soon as you can on April 26th. So it's very, very close. I'm very excited for you guys to read it. Also check out different merch at the store as well, like the black tea mug and other stuff that you guys can get. And that's it. I will see you guys on Monday. God bless.